Okay, we're going to be taking a look at Thunder on the Mississippi, Grant's Vicksburg Campaign, just published by Multiman Publishing, and it's August of 2024. Now I have to apologize in advance for the unsteadiness of the camera for a bit. I've just returned from up north, and unfortunately I left my large tripod there, so I apologize for that. Now, as I do with a lot of my videos, I often show you some recommended reading. This is a Civil War Times Illustrated special edition I had from 1967. It's quite good. Some very good articles, photographs, and some very good maps of the campaign too. So if you get your hands on that, it's highly recommended. They show Champions Hill, Battle of Raymond, and it's quite a good issue. Plus there's a half-decent map of the campaign, which is going to make a lot more sense when I show you the board to the game. Very good issue. Now I must confess that the Vicksburg Campaign has never really turned me on for reading. I've read about it in other books, but until I got this one, I just finished this book last week by Mr. Timothy B. Smith, and he's the first author that I really understand the campaign a lot better than I ever did before. He goes into all of the individual battles, like Port Gibson, the initial landing at Bruinsburg, the Battle of Raymond, Champions Hill, of course, and the Big Black River. And I highly recommend this to understand the campaign as far as the game is concerned. It's a good introduction to the Vicksburg Campaign. If I've learned anything from Mr. Smith's book, it's that the Confederate High Command was completely befuddled by Grant's strategy. It's a brilliant campaign on the part of Grant, and Pemberton just didn't have his act together. Anyway, let's now take a look at the game. Okay, I'm trying to show you the campaign map now, and bear with me because I'm dealing with, cords and wires and not my usual system. Sure missed that tripod. Anyway, the game does come with two maps. There's an eastern map here and a western one. And this is covered with plastic. The split is approximately here, as you can see. You can play some of the scenarios with just the west map and some with just the east map. Of course, if you want to play the whole campaign, you'll need to put the two together. So, as an overall view here, Grant's army lands here at Bruinsburg. And your first scenario takes place around Port Gibson here. There's also an opening scenario showing you Grant's landing. Also, there's a scenario for Grant moving up here, up to about here where the Battle of Raymond is. And there's scenarios concerning Jackson. And of course, when Grant moves west, you've got the main battle at Champions Hill, right here, and the Battle of the Big Black River here. And of course, the Siege of Vicksburg, there's the Big Black River, and the Siege of Vicksburg proper here. So you've got lots of scenarios to explore. Now, if I can get the camera steadier, I'll be able to show you some of the some close-ups of the map to show you just how beautiful the map really is. Typical MMP quality. Okay, the game comes with 11 scenarios, and scenario number 2 is the one that is the earliest one. Starts on April 30th and ends on May 4th. And this covers Grant's landing at Bruinsburg. So scenario number 2 begins with Grant's army landing here at Bruinsburg and concerns his advance to Port Gibson. That's the earliest scenario in the game. Now scenario number 1 concerns the Battle of Port Gibson itself, and it's actually only a one-turn scenario of May 1st. For those of you who know the campaign or have read about it, most of the action at Port Gibson takes place southwest of the city. And that's an interesting scenario too, but you only have one turn to reach the objective. So it's kind of balanced in that way. Grant's forces outnumber Pemberton, but time is against him in this scenario. Now the third scenario is called Unite Your Troops and concerns Grant taking Hankinson's Ferry and the territory around it. So scenario number 3, see if I can get Port Gibson in there. Apologies for the angle. There's Port Gibson, there's Grand Gulf, and there's Hankinson's Bridge. I think I called it Ferry. So this part of the campaign concerns Grant getting across the Big Black River. Again, I can't show you all of the map, but you can see the Big Black River is a major river coming out of the Mississippi. And that's the second part of the campaign, getting across the Bayou Pierre and the Big Black River. Now, scenario number 4 begins on May 10th and ends on May 14th. So it's a, 5-turn scenario? And it concerns Grant's army getting across the Big Black River, something he at first wanted to do, and this is if he had decided to go against Vicksburg directly from the south. He later abandoned that plan, but we'll show you what that part of the map looks like. Now, I've just put a few representative units here to show you where Grant sets up south of the Big Black River, and he's got to get up north, and you can see some Confederate units up there. Tilghman's and Loring's division. Tilghman is just a brigade. I should point out that when you set up the games, the scenarios, you're going to see how scattered and befuddled the Confederate command really was in this campaign. You've got brigades fighting divisions in this game. It's really very good for demonstrating the campaign. If you play the scenarios and read the historical commentary, the campaign as fought by Grant is going to become crystal clear. Now, I won't go through all of the scenarios, but some of the scenarios concern Grant's move east, and which ended up at the Battle of Raymond, May 14th. Raymond is a small battle, but, well, it's the old thing where Grant is just outclassing the Confederates in every particular. He's got divisions and corps versus brigades, just showing you how befuddled the Confederate command was. Now, the battle at Raymond actually opens up the Mississippi capital, Jackson, to Grant, which he does capture. And then, of course, Grant begins his move west, which will lead to the Battle of Champions Hill, which is kind of my favorite scenario in the game. Now, I'm not showing all of the counters here, but you get an idea. This is the kind of the dispositions for the Battle of Champions Hill. Again, Pemberton's pretty befuddled. His army was kind of marching all over the place, and they marched in from the west, taking this position on Champions Hill, just east of Baker's Creek. Grant approached from the west, from the east rather, and, well, it was a terribly fought battle by the Confederates. They nearly got completely cut off. Grant eventually turned the Confederate left flank, cutting off practically the whole army from the bridge. And Pemberton nearly lost his whole army there. Loring's division, in fact, had to retreat and left Pemberton's army. Pemberton did manage to get his army across Baker's Creek and retreat to the west, to the next position, which was at the Big Black River Bridge. Scenario number 8 is called Move At Once, and it covers the period for the Battle of the Big Black River Bridge. Once again, the Confederates, just their heart and soul just doesn't seem to be in this battle at all. Pemberton's men occupy positions east of the river, once again, taking the chance of leaving, defending a position with his back to the river. Grant does attack. The Confederate army just goes to pieces again. Very bad showing. They retreat across the bridge, and the only defensive position left now is Vicksburg itself to the west. Now, these are not the exact units for the siege of Vicksburg. I just put them here as a representative of what's going on. Once Grant reached the outskirts of Vicksburg, that was it. It was just a matter of time. Now, I think one of the reasons why Vicksburg does not interest me much is because it's a siege. Once campaigns become sieges, they kind of lose interest for me. I found the same thing when I was reading about the siege of Savannah during the American Revolution. Same thing happened when I read about the Siege of Petersburg. I much prefer the overland campaign and how the armies get to these positions. Once it becomes a siege, I find myself skimming some of the chapters when it deals with the siege. Sieges are rather dull. Not a lot happens. And I've been to the Vicksburg battlefield, and again, it's not the same thing as touring, let's say, Gettysburg. You go down the lines, see the siege lines, and just battery positions. Just doesn't interest me as much as the campaign itself. Now for this title, I've done something a little bit different than some of the other titles. You get two booklets, the version 1.6 set of the rules, and of course the exclusive rules for the Vicksburg Campaign. So version 1.6 is what? It's 23 pages long, usual quality we've come to be used to, illustrated, fine print, a lot of reading here. You could probably still play the game with version 1.5. That's what I've done. I've copied it, and of course I can yellow in and highlight. That's the way I learn games, but I kind of like the idea of having the standard basic game rules in one volume and not that thick. It's the second volume, Thunder on the Mississippi, where all of the scenarios, advanced game rules, historical commentary. There's a great gazetter in it if you want to learn about the terrain the battles were fought in. If you want to follow the campaign and the gazetter, just read this and you'll really get a good foundation of the campaign itself. Counters, well, I've shown you a few. It's the standard quality from the company, very good looking. You'll have to use some intelligent sorting to get all the counters in the trays. I went with this system. I put the Union in core here and the Confederate leaders by their last name alphabetically here, and a lot of the specialized markers here. And for the strength markers, I went to baggies, and I think I had to have one bag of specialized markers too, so you have to deal with that. Oh, I'm very pleased with Thunder on the Mississippi. I'm going to break out a scenario or two. I've already fooled around with the Bruinsburg opening. Quite enjoyed it. Grant was advancing. He got a nice forced march rule, got in the Confederate rear and cut some guys off, so you're going to have to be careful in this one. I think there's a lot of just interesting fun to be had playing these scenarios. I doubt if I'll ever get to the campaign game, maybe by vassal, if I can find a willing opponent, but I really do enjoy the scenarios in this game. So that's it for Thunder on the Mississippi, and thank you for watching.